Nice to meet you over remote webinar. I might have met a few of you in person before. I am on the Pinterest agency team, and we've heard a ton of feedback over the past few years that you would actually like better education, not only on the tactical things that you can recommend to your clients, but on more of the ways that you guys can position Pinterest to your clients and how you should be talking about it. So we decided to kind of go through the Pinterest narrative, how people use the platform, and equip our agency and PMP partners with the knowledge of how you'd actually position the platform to your clients before you get into more tactical recommendations. So today is really level setting. It's a high level overview, not a ton of slides, and we'll make sure you guys have access to these after the webinar. Okay, so some quick objectives and what you're going to walk away from after you attend this webinar. First is just to provide an overview and level setting of how people use Pinterest as the world's catalog of ideas. We're then going to explain at a high level how Pinterest provides value to your clients at every level of the customer journey. So whether that's more top of mind awareness, middle of the funnel consideration, or bottom of the funnel purchase intent, Pinterest does serve each of those pieces of the funnel well, and want to make sure you kind of understand how people use the platform and how you can tap into those behaviors as a marketer. And then finally, the end goal, obviously why you're here today, is so that you guys can best position Pinterest to your clients when you're presenting it to them or when they ask you questions. Okay, so kind of first tenet, like I just spoke about, we think of Pinterest as the world's catalog of ideas, and I've heard a lot of feedback from agencies and other partners that when you think about those ideas, it's really about kind of the quintessential Pinterest use cases, whether it's wedding planning, kids' birthday parties, etc. And while those ideas are definitely super popular on the platform, what a lot of people don't know is that there's a lot of other use cases for those ideas. So whether you're doing a smaller everyday life moment, like planning a weekend trip, what you're going to wear for work that week, what you're going to cook for dinner for your family, we see a lot of use cases on the platform for people coming to Pinterest to use it for everyday ideas. We also, not surprisingly, see a lot of use cases for big life moments. So again, whether that's getting married, having a baby, remodeling your home, some of those big life events also take place on Pinterest. So just kind of want to level set there that it's used both for the everyday as well as big life events. What we see a lot of is that people use Pinterest to plan. Again, they come and they look for those ideas, but what they do on a very typical basis is follow what we call the pinner path. And I'm kind of going to go through an example of what that looks like. I'm not going to assume everybody uses Pinterest as a user. If you do, then this path probably seems very familiar. But I think this is really important to note as you think about tapping into Pinterest behavior for your clients. And so we're going to kind of use an example from a retailer to kind of show how that comes to life on the platform. So like I said, we have this pinner path. It starts at discovery, which again, if you think about the marketing funnel, really kind of sits well in that awareness stage. They then plan, which is a high level of intent and consideration, and then act, which is obviously bottom of the funnel when you care about things like conversions and sales. So we're going to go through what that example looks like on the pinner path. So when you log into Pinterest, you're shown a feed of many different ideas. Ideally, those ideas align to what we have determined from our platform is most interesting to you as a Pinterest user. So in this example, let's say you log into Pinterest and you're shown a variety of home decor ideas, and that's probably because the algorithm has determined based on past pinning behavior that you are interested in home decor ideas. And so this is the kind of phase of discovery, right? You're just looking, you're kind of looking to be inspired, you don't really know what you're looking for, you're scrolling through and we're serving you ideas that might pique your interest, that ideally should fit what you're looking for, but you're in a very open mindset of discovery. What's unique about Pinterest is that we see a high level of intent in this middle of the funnel, maybe I could stage. So after you're just looking, maybe you see something that's interesting to you or that inspires you. You can either click to close up on the pin, you can save the pin for later to a board, or we see a lot of search behavior. So in this case, let's say you're just looking and then all of a sudden you're like, well, there was some really cool backyard fire ideas, I'm going to search for more of them. So we do see a lot of behavior around both the discovery as well as the more intent-based middle of the funnel purchase consideration. And then ideally, after you've close-upped on the pin, saved it, or clicked through on the pin, we do drive to the website with the goal of enabling you to try the idea, buy the product, learn a little bit more about it, and actually drive the objective that you're looking to drive. So this sort of pinner path that I went through, moving from discovery to consideration to actually clicking through to your client's website, is a very quintessential way people use the Pinterest platform. So we talked a little bit about how Pinterest is the world's catalog of ideas. If that's the case, then these pins are actually the manifestations of those ideas. And so here are some screenshots of what they look like. Again, if you're not familiar with the platform, this is kind of the ideal state that they are. They're both personal and future oriented, but what's most important is that they're actionable. So they're personal in the way that when you see a pin on Pinterest, it should feel relevant to you, again, based on your past behavior and things you've indicated you're interested in. They should be future oriented. We're going to talk a little bit at the end of this positioning deck about how Pinterest is about the future and not so much about the past or the present, but ideally the pin should be giving you an idea about something you're planning for the future. And then again, most importantly, especially as a marketer, you want to make sure that pin is actionable so that people actually go try, buy, or do the idea that you presented to them. In terms of stats, you can share with your clients, we have over 75 billion pins or ideas, if you'd like to call them that, on over 1 billion boards, and it's still growing. Okay, so a little bit on promoted pins, and we're going to be going through this in the next webinar in more depth, but just so you guys kind of get a feel for the 3 principles I just talked about, they are native to the experience. They should feel natural. So this Pinterest feed should be the feed of somebody who has indicated in some way, shape, or form that they're interested in travel, maybe home decor with that chair at the bottom, and baking or snacking. The only difference between a promoted pin and a regular organic pin is that it says promoted by at the bottom. So as you can see, this is a promoted by Jello pin. But again, this should feel native to this particular person. This should not feel invasive or disruptive as an advertisement. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how Pinterest is the world's catalog of ideas, how pins are the manifestations of those ideas, and what pins look like when somebody enters the platform. The second principle that I really want to focus on is the fact that the best ideas on Pinterest actually come from a brand or a business. So I know a lot of other platforms that you might be advertising on, you kind of have to figure out how the advertisement aligns well to the user experience. On Pinterest, it's a little different because people are actually coming to the platform to find ideas for brands or businesses. It's very intent driven. And so the example here, and I'm sure this is happening to quite a few of us, is that, it's cold weather and we're probably thinking a little bit about spring break, right? So if you come to the platform and you're looking for spring break ideas, you might be looking for inspiration around spring break, but you're actually looking for maybe vacation packages, discounts, hotels, places to go like Disney. And so that's a really important thing to understand about the platform, is that most of our content does not come, let's say, from a friend posting pictures of their vacation or a family member posting pictures of the new baby. It's really about a brand or a business being at the forefront of people looking for ideas that they can try, buy, or do. So that's a really important differentiator and one that we get a lot of questions on, so just kind of wanted to point that out. In fact, if you actually took away all of the content that came from a brand or a business, you'd only be left with about 25% of that content. So that's really important to note. And this is not necessarily paid content. This is content that somebody has gone on the web and saved to Pinterest. And so again, this is a really important thing to keep in mind for your clients, because people are actively seeking the content from a brand or business. They're not seeking specific user-generated content. And people all around the internet are bringing content onto Pinterest that they've saved. So making sure that your brand is kind of top of mind when people are searching for ideas is important, because people are actually looking for ideas from a brand or a business. And we like to say that everybody needs a good idea. When you log on to Pinterest, again, you're not looking for, friends' photos. You're not looking for memories in the past. You're not looking for real-time updates. You're actually looking for ideas. Again, whether that's the everyday, what you're going to make for dinner this week, or a big life moment like taking a large vacation. Everybody needs a good idea. So some quick stats that you're more than welcome to share with your clients. We just announced a few months ago that we have over 150 million people on Pinterest who are monthly actives. Half of them are from international audiences, so we surpassed that 50% benchmark back a few months ago. And what's really interesting and important to keep in mind is that 80% of people access Pinterest through a mobile device. So we are mobile first. We will talk a little bit in the upcoming webinars about creative best practices that are optimized for mobile to make sure you're capitalizing on that for your clients. And like I said before, over 75 billion ideas in the form of pins are on Pinterest, and that is growing. One more stat slide that I definitely like to highlight when I'm talking to my agency partners is that Pinners pick up some really meaningful audiences to agencies. I know the perception on Pinterest is that it's female-centric, and definitely we have a lot of females. I'm not going to sit here and tell you we don't. In fact, we have 3 out of every 4 moms in the United States on Pinterest. And I think that's a really powerful demographic to have when you think about things like planning for the household and purchasing power. So it's definitely important that we do have that female audience, especially moms. But what a lot of people don't know is that men are our fastest growing segment on the platform. And in fact, in the United States, we have 1 out of every 3 dads as they become more and more involved in the household and their kids' everyday lives. We have 1 out of every 2 millennials. Around 42% of our overall platform is under the age of 34. So again, I know that's an important demographic for many of our agency partners, and want to make sure you guys understand that there are millennials on the platform and that they're a great audience to reach for some of your clients' campaign ideas. Another interesting stat is that we have 2 out of every 5 high household incomes in the United States. And when we define high household income, that's defined as having an income of over 75K or more a year. What's really interesting is that when we surveyed all of these different demographics on Pinterest, we asked them, what do you use the platform for the most? And 93% of the people surveyed say that they actually use Pinterest to plan purchases more than, like I said, looking for, real-time updates or things that happened in the past. They're actually using Pinterest to plan a purchase. And again, that's a really important thing to emphasize with your clients if they're looking to get in front of people when they're open to discovering new ideas or exhibiting more intent. And I'll talk a little bit about those 2 dynamics of discovery and intent on this slide. We have 2 very distinct behaviors on Pinterest, and we actually built our targeting capabilities around those behaviors. And you're going to learn a little bit more about that in our webinar on targeting and audiences that's coming up in a few weeks. But just kind of wanted to point this out. People use Pinterest in 2 ways. The first is through accessing ideas through the home feed. So on the left, this is what Pinterest would look like to somebody if they just kind of logged in, opened up the app. Ideally, in this just very baseline home feed, we're showing them ideas that are relevant to them based on interests they've indicated to us in the past. So again, this feed should be of somebody who has indicated they're interested in maybe entertaining in parties or cooking with the loaded tachos, home decor with that pin from Marshalls, maybe travel, getting some helpful tips about what to avoid in Bangkok, and maybe they're getting married. And this is a pin of a suit that they were interested in. So again, the home feed should have pins that feel native to that person's experience. And this is a great opportunity for a marketer, right? If the algorithm has determined you're interested in cooking or party planning or home decor, it would be great to get this pin of lamps or these loaded tachos in front of you as maybe you plan a Super Bowl party. So the home feed is really about discovery, and people aren't sure what they're looking for, but the ideas we serve to them should be relevant. So really great for awareness-based KPIs. The other interesting behavior that we see on the platform is search. So we see over 2 billion monthly searches happen on the platform, which is really important to keep in mind if you want to capitalize on reaching people when they're exhibiting a little bit more intent. So they're kind of out of that awareness discovery piece of the funnel, and they're a little bit further down. So let's say somebody's searching for Valentine's Day, super relevant right now. I'm sure everybody on this line is planning for that as we speak. And your clients would have the opportunity to show up in the search results for Valentine's Day. So whether it's the example of the bracelets on the right-hand side for your sister, or maybe you're looking for the perfect watch to give the man in your life on Valentine's Day, this would be a great place to show up in the search results when somebody's exhibiting more intent-based behavior. So just kind of wanted to take a step back and point out these two behaviors. It is unique to our platform that we kind of have both, but it's a great place for a marketer to be depending on what your client's KPIs are. Oops. Okay, so we talked about how Pinterest is the world's catalog of ideas. We talked about how people plan for the future. Now we're actually going to talk about what that future kind of means in terms of activity on the platform, and then we'll be wrapping up. So like I said, this is a pretty quick deck. So Pinterest is about the future. It's not about what's happening in the real world at this moment or real-time updates. And it's not about reminiscing what happened in the past. It's really about planning what is going to be happening in the future. And so when you think about it, obviously people are planning for seasonal events, and we see this happen year-round on Pinterest. And so across the horizontal axis on the bottom, we actually plotted out months of a given calendar year. And what you'll see is pinning volume over time related to key seasonal events throughout the year that people are planning for. So as you can see, we just concluded Christmas. Not surprisingly, a planning starts in October, and it starts to uptick. It obviously reaches a peak during the holiday season, but what's most important to note is kind of that slope of the line starts a lot earlier than just around the holiday itself. So on average, people plan around 2 to 4 months in advance on Pinterest. As you can see with Father's Day, people save it a little bit more to last minute, so it tends to be a little bit more steep of a slope there. But on average, it's about 2 to 4 months in advance, which is a really important thing to think about if you have a client that cares about showing up during a key seasonal event throughout the year, because that kind of behavior is very typical of the platform. And so being able to advise your client on maybe starting their campaigns a little bit in advance of the moment that they're looking to reach people during is super important to keep in mind, because we do see that pinning behavior. We do offer, obviously, key seasonal events to capitalize on, but what a lot of people don't realize is that people on Pinterest aren't just on the platform to do a seasonal kind of planning. They're also always on planning for life events. So like I said earlier when I opened the webinar, people are planning for life events, both big and small, and they're always on. So if you think about those big life events, people are getting married, they're having babies, and they're remodeling their home, and that's not necessarily seasonal. That's happening all the time. And the amount of pinning that happens around these moments and events it's huge. So we have over 930 million pins about people getting married, over 900 million having a baby, and 915 million around home remodels. So these big life events are happening every day, and they're always on. But what a lot of people don't know is we have a lot of these smaller everyday, maybe it's not as fun, but I thought these pin numbers were just interesting to look at. I'm sure a lot of people don't know that we have over 4 billion pins on just snacking. People love snacking. They love thinking of different ideas, what to put in kids' lunches, what to bring to work, healthy snacks, creative snacks. And so, again, that's an always-on activity, not necessarily related to a seasonal event. That would be a great opportunity for someone to capitalize on if you have clients in kind of the food space. We have over 34 million pins on laundry. People are always looking for laundry hacks, laundry ideas, green laundry tips. And so thinking about that always on opportunities there as well. And that, not surprisingly, especially with the New Year's resolutions happening, we have over 530 million pins from last year on just health and fitness alone. So thinking about how you can capitalize on different things happening on Pinterest when it comes to planning, whether that's a seasonal event, a big life moment always happening, or smaller everyday always on events that people are planning for, is, I think, a really exciting opportunity. Okay, so that's it. Like I said, this is short and sweet. Just kind of wanted to give you some slides and some talking points around how you guys can guide your clients when they ask you about Pinterest and how you can position it. So just to quickly recap, Pinterest is the world's catalog of ideas, And the ideas are actually best serving people when it comes from a brand or a business, when people are looking to try them. Pinterest is not about user-generated content. It's about showing people ideas that are relevant for what they're looking to accomplish on the platform. Number two, we talked about the Pinner path, discover, save, and try those ideas every day, which segues into number three. That Pinner path really maps nicely to clients' KPIs across brand awareness, consideration, and purchase. In upcoming webinars, we will talk about some specific tactical tips around creative ad formats and how that maps to both DR and brand-based objectives if you're looking for a little bit more tactical ideas around how to execute that for your clients. So if this is interesting to you, definitely tune in to those webinars that are coming up. And then the last point I made that we just talked about is that people are on Pinterest to plan, and they're there to plan for the seasonal, the big life moments, as well as the everyday. And that is it. So I will turn this back over to Adrienne. Feel free to ask questions in the questions chat bar on the webinar widget. And it was great speaking with you guys, and thanks so much for tuning in.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. I think this was super helpful, giving the lay of the land of Pinterest and really understanding how to best position it with clients to really drive impact for them and help them understand what the platform can do in achieving their objectives. So I think that was great. Looks like we do have a couple questions, so I'll start going through some, and Ashley will help answer these. So if we haven't covered it already, can you go a little bit more into the point that you made about pins being personal? Do you have anything else to share on that, Ashley?
Yeah, I'm assuming this probably means how they show up to you on Pinterest, or is this, I mean, I can answer it, and then if whoever asked that question, if this doesn't answer it well, then can definitely elaborate. So when you're on Pinterest, you can do a variety of things. You can kind of, click to close up. You can save the pin for later. You can click through to the website if it grabbed your attention enough that you actually wanted to learn more about the pin. And every time you perform those actions on Pinterest, the algorithm kind of picks up on that. So I'll give you guys a personal example about how I use the platform. I used it a lot about a year ago for recipe ideas. And then, as I moved into a new apartment and had a little bit more space, I was really looking for some more tips around like patio. And we were actually, my fiance and I were redecorating our patio. So what I started doing is searching for, patio ideas. I started following this kind of online e-commerce company called Hayneedle, and then all of a sudden my Pinterest algorithm, when I logged in, was showing me more home remodel and specifically patio tips, because it picked up on the fact that I was exhibiting more intent on the platform, that I wanted to see more of that content. And so that's what we mean by personal, is that ideally every time someone logs into Pinterest, they're logging into a catalog that's personalized to them. It's not some content that we think they should be shown. It's content that they've exhibited that they want to see based on past behavior. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But if I didn't answer your question, you can just send through another clarification to Adrienne, and I can answer that.
Awesome. Thanks, Ash. So I think that makes sense. You're talking more about, in the respect as a user, a person going onto Pinterest, what we're going to show them as a platform is going to be personal, not necessarily what an advertiser should be doing, though they could take into account, playing into like what someone might be interested in when they're creating content to advertise on Pinterest with.
Oh yeah, that's actually a really good call out. One of the things that we're working on as a company is making our targeting capabilities really, really good. So you can certainly make sure that the advertising and the promoted pin experience feels super relevant and personalized. So you can tweak creative, you can make it feel personalized, and then what you'd want to do is target it to somebody who either falls within a current customer database, or people who have exhibited certain interests on the platform. So if you are interested in tailoring content from a promoted pin perspective, I would definitely join that targeting and audiences webinar that I believe is next week, Adrienne, because that's when we'll talk a little bit about how you can make the promoted pin opportunity even stronger.
Yes, that's correct. That is next Thursday's webinar topic. Awesome. Ashley, can you also reference the stats? I don't know if you have it on the top of your head, but the stats from page 14, if they all are referring to the U.S. population?
Yes, I can scroll back, but I believe, is that the slide that we talked about, 3 out of every 4 moms, 1 out of every 3 dads, 2 out of every 5 high household incomes?
I believe so.
Yep, so I'll confirm that is US only.
And that's referring to the total US population. Perfect. Awesome. Another stats question. Oh, okay. This is a great question. Just talking about like when we're going to have newer, more updated stats available for 2016. And I don't know, Ashley, if you have any timelines, but I'm assuming that we'll have something in the next couple of months that will reflect more of the 2016 data as we're collecting it and putting that together.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, you guys probably there probably was somebody reading the footnotes, so good job there. Yeah, so as 2016 closes, we'll be wrapping up all of our survey data as well as some of the ComScore stuff and updating that. I don't know if everybody on this webinar is part of our agency newsletter, but that goes out once a month. And so if anybody wants to stay kind of more updated as we come out with, new stats or stuff like that, I would definitely recommend everybody sign up for that. So Adrian, maybe we can include a sign up for the newsletter in our follow-up. But yes, we should be coming out with updated stats, hopefully within the first half of 2017. And then what I will say is that if any of the stats around pinning behavior for seasonal moments or specific categories, like I showed in this deck, was interesting to you, we have a lot of access to Pinterest tools that we can, pull data for you. So if you're running an upcoming campaign and you need data around, say you were interested in the laundry stat and you wanted to dig into that a little bit more, you can work with your Pinterest teams to kind of pull that for you to get more information. So hopefully that's helpful.
Awesome. Yes, we'll definitely include the sign up for the agency newsletter in the recap. And also, I know there are PMPs on the line also that work with us. And there's also a PMP newsletter that you potentially could sign up for. So we'll include both of those. And you can get all of the updated information there. Awesome. So next question. In terms of just stats, when we're talking about time spent, Ashley, we're referring to time spent in the home feed, or is that in different areas of Pinterest as well?
Sorry, and what is that in reference to for time spent?
When we're talking about the stats that we shared around time spent, would that be in the home feed or other areas of Pinterest? We can jump back to.
Yeah, I just because I just want to see exactly what stat we're referring to for time spent.
Sure. Do you want me to jump back in the presentation here? We can look at some of just making sure that we have the right slide here. This is more about audiences. I'm not sure if we referenced time spent on the platform in this particular presentation.
No, I don't think we did, but if whoever wrote that in wants to clarify, I'd be happy to address it. And if you remember the slide, we can pull that up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get back to the end here. Great. All right. Yeah, again, this was more, I think this was more of a time spent question. So maybe we can share in the follow-up some of our time spent numbers. We didn't actually cover too much of that in this presentation here. Just the question was coming through, Ashley, was about percent of monthly active users who are scrolling through their home feed, which we'll go ahead and just, if you want to clarify and send another question, that's great. If not, we'll also try and send some stats that we have around time spent. Oh, you are asking if they're available. Thank you. We can definitely share that in the recap email, what we have available to share around time spent.
Good question.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. How do you make your pins best searchable for the holidays? Do we have any recommendations on that? I know we'll get into that also when we're talking about creative best practices, but I don't know if you have anything to share, Ashley, in that respect.
Yeah, best searchable for the holidays. I'm trying to think of some like really great best practice. I mean, we'll get into this with targeting, but I would work with your Pinterest team to devise a strategy around what keywords you want to tap into. So if search and that intent-based focus is in fact what your clients care about, then what our Pinterest teams would do is kind of work with you on that holiday campaign and say, okay, here are the search terms that I think we should include as part of our keyword targeting list. And let's make sure that whenever somebody searches for this particular keyword, it surfaces. So, probably very familiar to those of you who have run search-based campaigns in the past, but that would probably be the first thing we would do. The second thing that I'd highly recommend is tuning into the DR-based webinar on how to optimize creative and ad formats to drive business objectives. We do have some really good creative best practices, and I'll just cite a few of them without, kind of giving you guys the webinar on that. But we've noticed that certain creative optimizations, like including a text overlay over the image, including subtle logos in your creative, including things like calls to action, making sure the pins are helpful, are certain tenets that really lead to better results from an optimization perspective. So what I would say is if you were running a holiday campaign and you cared about reaching people when they were searching, I would definitely figure out first what your targeting strategy is and the keywords you want to use to make sure it's relevant to the campaign. And then secondly, when we do actually serve the ad to somebody searching, making sure that pin is helpful, it grabs their attention through the text overlay, it's clear what call to action you're asking them to perform. And like I said, we are actually bringing one of our creative experts on the line next Tuesday to talk through especially DR-based best practices for creative. So would definitely encourage you guys to attend that if you can. And again, if you can't, we'll be recording it. But there's probably going to be some good nuggets in there, especially coming out of the holidays this past year that we've learned.
Great. In terms of the key events that you shared when people are starting to plan on the platform around key events, are these the most popular events that we would say that we should be talking to clients about and surrounding our advertisers around those events, or are there other moments as well?
Oh, that's a really good question. No, actually, that is, I actually pulled that slide together, and the reason why I pulled the events that I did is because it didn't get too overcrowded. So it was like, a good one in like February and April and summer and fall and winter. So the answer is no. There's a ton of other moments on Pinterest that we see brands capitalizing on. So an example right now is Super Bowl. We kind of found out this insight that people are forming this activity called home gating more. And so we're actually working with clients to advise them about how to tap into that home gating phenomenon and planning a Super Bowl party. So Super Bowl is big on the platform. Award shows and planning award show kind of engagements and parties is super popular. I'd say every major holiday, like Mother's Day, it wasn't on the slide. That's another huge one that we see people using Pinterest to plan for. And so what we can do is in the follow-up, we do have a seasonal event calendar. Again, it's from last year, but it does give you an idea of what the moments are from a seasonal perspective that you can tap into for clients. And what it also does is it tells you what months in advance you should be starting to think about it. So for example, if you care about Father's Day, we'll actually tell you, like, in the month of April, maybe at the end, start thinking about pinning behavior and launching campaigns for Father's Day then. So we can definitely include that for you guys so you can get a little bit more inspiration around what specific seasonal moments you can tap into for your clients.
Awesome. We'll definitely include that. And then the next question is around just, the fact that there are brands and businesses on Pinterest, about 75% of Pinterest is made up of that. So how much do we have the number in terms of that percentage? How much is made up of promoted versus organic pins?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We don't have the exact percentage breakdown, but I would say most of that is organic. And the reason why, and I'll give you guys a little bit more of a concrete example there. The way that we see a lot of people use Pinterest is a place to kind of like bookmark and save ideas that they find around the internet. So sometimes like I'll be on, say, like Nordstrom.com or another department store, and I'll see a pair of shoes or a pair of jeans or a sweater or scarf. I actually use this a lot for the holidays while I was planning my gift giving. And what I'll do is I'll say, I'm not ready to buy this yet because I'm still shopping for, say, this scarf for my mom, but I'm going to save this one for later. So they actually use the Pinterest extension on their web, like kind of the web browser, and what I'll do is I'll save it to Pinterest. So that's what we mean by content coming to Pinterest organically. That's somebody like me on the internet saving content to Pinterest, and now that's essentially created a new piece of content in the form of the pin on the platform that other people can also save. So that's that. I would say the lion's share of that 75% is content people are bringing to Pinterest. But obviously, letting you guys as your clients, agencies, and PMPs tap into that and promote content that you know is either already performing well from an organic perspective or new content that you want to serve paid advertising is super important. So I don't have that exact breakdown, but the majority of that, because 75% of all content on Pinterest is obviously a very large number, is organic.
Great, thanks so much. Just a clarifying question. When we're talking about 75 billion ideas on Pinterest, we are talking about ideas being a pin. So ideas are pins, correct? Awesome. And then just in terms of positioning, how would you position opportunities within Pinterest to a client with a smaller paid budget? What are some things that they can do to take advantage of the platform with not maybe as high of a budget as some of the bigger advertisers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have a whole guide on how to get started on Pinterest and how to establish your brand from an organic perspective. So we do have some best practices in terms of, you know, kind of how to set up your business presence, what sorts of pins to start out with. And to be honest, I think that's a really good approach for a smaller business that has a limited budget, because obviously you want to make sure that budget is optimized to serve your clients in the best way possible. There is a tool on Pinterest, and again, we can include this in the follow-up. It's called Pinterest Analytics, and it's a free tool that anyone can access. It's kind of like a little-known secret, and what you can do is after you've onboarded your client, created a business profile for them, and put out some pin content, you can actually access the analytics, which is a purely organic tool that you can use to see what of my organic or what of my clients' organic content is really performing well, whether that's people clicking through or saving. So what I would advise is maybe use that getting started spending and then access Pinterest Analytics to see what's performing well, and then use your budget to really capitalize on the content that you think is resonating with people. So I definitely agree, like you want to make sure your budget is used best. So maybe do a little bit of testing on the organic side, see what's working, and then put some paid media behind it when you're ready.
Great, and Ashley, that Getting Started guide, can that be found on the Business for Pinterest site?
Yes, we can definitely, I can go dig it up. We can send out the link in the follow-up email.
We'll do that as well, so that way you guys can make sure you guys have it. Another question coming in, a couple around just stats. In terms of non-US stats, do we have a breakdown of percentages for the non-US users that we have on Pinterest?
Yeah, that's something we're working on. We are focusing on a few specific countries right now, but like we don't have any like breakdowns of, you know, exactly how that 50% pans out. But again, if you join the agency newsletter, as soon as my team kind of gets that information, I make sure it's in the newsletter every month. So I will definitely put that in there once it's available.
Okay, awesome. Great. So in terms of reach and frequency, when we're talking about that, I think a lot of clients are asking about that, which partners can't necessarily report on. So to help answer it, this particular person will share search trends. Is there any opportunity in 2017 that we see Pinterest actually sharing more search volumes out to agencies and PMPs so they can share with their clients and partners?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Stepping back from the search specific question, I'd say we get a lot of questions about reach, and we are working on figuring out how we best kind of approximate reach for you guys. There are some ways to kind of proxy for it, but we know that's a big ask from agencies, so that is something that we're working on. You can work with your Pinterest teams to pull kind of approximate numbers if that's helpful. In terms of search, I think that's more of a question for your account team who you work with. We haven't published any aggregate search trends, and that's really because we're focusing on kind of seeing what search looks like on Pinterest. It is very different from the way you might buy search on other platforms in terms of branded versus non-branded terms, you know, long tail keywords versus all else, and then branded versus unbranded. So what we're doing is actually kind of digging deeper into trends that we see in search as we speak, And then we'll probably be establishing a more robust POV around how search works on Pinterest. And that's when you probably would be able to access stuff like that. So we're in our very, very early stages of our search journey, but it's something we're focusing on as a company because, like I said, we see a lot of search volume happen, and we're just trying to figure out what that means on Pinterest versus buying search on other platforms. So more to come there. I'd say in the meantime, before we publish that stuff, just work with your Pinterest team and see if they can pull some approximate numbers for you, depending on what the client is. And that might be the best course of action right now.
Awesome. In terms of just an organic standpoint, we're getting a lot of questions about organic. How would you characterize the behavior from discovery search phases on Pinterest compared to, say, discovery and search on like an Instagram platform? I think it's very different. And actually, if you want
Sorry, Adrian, you like.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, could you just repeat that? I think it cut out.
Absolutely. So I was saying from an organic standpoint, we're getting a lot of questions around organic. How would we characterize the behavior from the search discovery phases that we see on Pinterest versus something that would be the search discovery phase of, say, on an Instagram platform?
Okay, that's a good question. So I actually used to work for Facebook, and obviously that includes Instagram. The biggest thing I noticed when I moved to Pinterest is the fact that like search is a behavior, right? Like I don't know if anyone really searches on Instagram. Search definitely doesn't really happen a lot on Facebook in the same way. Like on Facebook, you might search for something like photos of my friends from college or this vacation, and on Instagram, you might search for like people or hashtags, but you don't search for an idea. Like you don't go on Instagram and say like home remodel tips. That's the big difference, right? And on Pinterest, people do that. They go and they search for, wedding ideas, home remodel, DIY projects, pet travel tips. Like you name it, there's a search for it on Pinterest. And what I will say is like on Facebook and Instagram, it's much more focused on discovery and what the algorithm and the news feed kind of deliver to you, not necessarily people going on and searching for something more intent focused on those platforms. So I don't know, hopefully that makes sense, but that's the biggest difference I'd say between the two platforms is that usage.
Great. Yeah, that makes sense, I think, for sure. So another question coming in terms of when we're talking about pins being personal, actionable, and future-oriented, are we really referencing the fact that they should be well-targeted? Also, as a brand creating pins, how do we make them personal if you're posting organically or doing relatively broad targeting? Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay, I'm just thinking through that. So to the first question about targeting like 100%, and I'd say as a company, we put a lot of resources into improving our targeting options in 2016. So we used to just offer things like, you can target by device, you can target by gender, you can target by interest, and in the latter part of 2016, we actually opened up our targeting solutions to allow for you to target based on audiences. So now you can do things like act-alike retargeting. You can do, website pixel retargeting. You can do targeting, and so we'll talk about that more in that webinar. But yes, like to your first question, absolutely, personal and better suited to accomplish business objectives when they are targeted better. What I'd say if you are taking a broad targeting strategy, there's still a way, like I would say, like think about a broader targeting strategy across maybe a category or a specific use case. So like let's take the snacking trend that I talked about, right? There's over 4 billion pins on snacking. There are definitely ways that you can use broad targeting, like maybe you're targeting people who are either A, interested in snacking on Pinterest, or B, searching for snacking ideas. Those are both very broad targeting strategies. But if your pin is about that specific thing, right? If it's about snacking or a cool snacking idea that your brand can introduce to somebody, then that still feels personal, right? If I'm searching for snacking ideas and I'm served a pin around how I can like better package a snack to bring to work or something healthy that I didn't consider last week, that's super relevant and personal to me. So I know we're kind of wrapped up in the advertising world about being, hyper targeted and, one-to-one messaging, and that's super important. But there's ways you can do that on Pinterest without, sacrificing the personal element when you're still broad targeting, if that helps.
Awesome. In terms of recommendations, if we're looking at recommending an advertiser start running on Pinterest, is it better to start specific with one product or broad with like a product category? I think this might revolve
I
around.
think
Yeah, go ahead if that makes sense to you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I honestly, and I know this isn't a very specific answer, but I would definitely. I think it depends on the products. I think if the product requires a little bit more education, and that isn't and I'm thinking of something like um, something the market's not familiar with, right? Like maybe your client has a product that I'm thinking of some of like the innovative subscription boxes or something that requires a little bit more education. That's obviously might take a little bit of a different strategy, and you might just want to focus on that versus like, let's say your client's a retailer and it's a bunch of different clothing or shoes or jewelry or something that is a good fit for the platform and has a specific kind of use case for what people are using Pinterest for. So again, I know that's not like a direct answer, but I think I would talk with your Pinterest team about what you think the best strategy would be. If it's a natural product fit across your catalog, I think that might make sense. But if it's a more nuanced product and requires a little bit more education, it might be best just to either focus on that or focus on something first that might work.
Awesome. So we have about 5 minutes left. We're going to do our best to get through the remaining questions. The next one that I'm looking at right now actually is one for my team. So just asking if there's going to be a digital learning center for Pinterest eventually, something similar to Facebook Blueprint or Twitter Flight School. And the answer is yes, we hope to get to that point. I think we're still a newer platform and a newer team within Pinterest where we're working to vet out the right options and what makes the most sense for you guys that's going to be most beneficial, but know that it is on our radar, and within hopefully the next year, within 2017, we'll see at least a pilot of a program similar to that, because I think they are really valuable in helping you guys really understand the platform and be able to learn. So more to come. And then the next question, just in terms of our audiences, Ashley, what's determining how we know who are moms and dads? And do users indicate that kind of information when they're signing up, or is it based on search history?
Yeah, really good question. Very similar to other platforms. Like, I don't think there's any platform on the internet that asks you if you're a mom when you sign up or how many kids you have. It's more signals from the algorithm that we've used to pick up on stuff like that. So I'd say it's more algorithmic, and it could be search behavior, but it also could be pinning behavior, and so stuff like that. So hopefully that helps. But when you sign up for Pinterest, we don't ask for specifics around your information that way. It's more what we pick up.
Great. And the next question is kind of getting into the tactical side when it comes to conversions, and we might cover this a little bit more when we talk about optimizing bidding and buying. So you may want to join that webinar as well, but I don't know if you have any intel on this, Ashley, or if we can wait until then, but if we know if views, add to cart, or purchase conversions will be available in the future, showing the difference between those.
Yeah, that's a great question. Would definitely ask that on the bidding and optimization webinar.
Okay, great. So yes, if that person wants to join that, that should be coming up in the next couple of weeks. I don't know the specific date, but it's not next week, but the week after. Awesome. So does getting more data with our Pinterest team require additional investment, or only for paid execution? So I think this might be something case by case, Ashley, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, no, I mean, what I would say is if you guys have a client who, is interested in just getting started on the platform and is testing a budget, we have insights that there basically are that we as Pinterest teams can access for you. So it won't be like a custom study or like a custom measurement or research or anything like that, but we do have some really cool, it's one of the things when I joined the company, I was like, wow, like, Pinterest has some amazing data, and like it's actually packaged up really neatly. So again, like if you wanted to see the whole deck on laundry insights, or you wanted to see the insights that we've built around snacking, we have those readily available, and all you need to do is ask your Pinterest team for that. So definitely not. And if you need help figuring out who to talk to at Pinterest, if you do have a client who's interested in spending or at least getting started with a test budget, like we can certainly help you with that.
Great. In the interest of time, we have a couple questions around DR, and my recommendation is really going to be to join the webinar specific around direct response, whether it comes to the creative strategy for direct response type advertisers, as well as just the bidding and buying and optimizing webinar. So I would say register for those so you can at least be getting the recap recording and materials, even if you're not able to attend. And then
yeah, totally. And I would say, you know, like today's webinar was really just around high level positioning. The reason why we have 6 in this series is so that you guys can attend the ones that you want to ask more particular questions on. So I'm sorry we can't get to all of them, but like today was just high level, but we've got a ton more coming up, and we have some great experts on them. So please ask those questions. Really, really excited you guys are asking so much.
Awesome. I think we have time for one more. Just in terms of share of voice, do we have any metrics we can share in terms of share of voice in respect to verticals on the platform? That's more of a high-level kind of question that someone might want to share in a narrative one-on-one presentation with a client. So Ashley, I don't know if we have that available to send along.
Yeah, we don't have that kind of like pre-packaged, if you will, but again, that might be a question for our Pinterest team. We don't have like a share of voice tool, but we could use some approximate like total volume across the category proxies. I've seen teams do that before with their clients and then kind of approximate it for you guys to show kind of what the opportunity could be and where you are standing right now. So, you know, nothing built as a tool yet, but definitely would work with your Pinterest teams, and we could probably come up with something approximate depending on what the category is.
Great. All right, and with that, I think we're right at time. So want to make sure that we're timely here and kind of wrap it up. Just want to thank everyone so much for joining. Be on the lookout for the recap email within the next couple of days that will have the recording as well as this presentation in PDF format, as well as those newsletters. You know, we'll include how to sign up for the newsletters and provide any of the other materials that we've kind of talked about, including the time spent numbers and seasonal events calendar. So be on the lookout for that, and we really thank you guys and look forward to having you join some of the other webinars and get even more of your questions answered, and just really help you talk to your clients about Pinterest. So thanks, guys, and we'll talk soon.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody.